Hello and welcome back to the channel. I had a comment on a recent video asking me the best way of loading their 35mm film into their particular camera. And I must admit, it's something I hadn't really considered. I've been doing this so long, I kind of just sort of instinctively know how to do it, and I think that's true of many photographers. But obviously I am aiming this channel at the beginner, and so I thought it might be wise to actually show how it's done. The trouble is it's different for different models of cameras, so I've got two that I'm going to demonstrate on in the hopes that it will actually make life a little bit easier for you. So let's get started. Okay, so here I have two very different SLRs, Praktica MTL50, which I've featured before in a video, which I'll leave a link to in the screen above. And then we also have the Pentax A3, again, already done a video on this, so again I'll leave a link up above. The reason I've chosen these two is this one is very much a manual camera. Everything that you do with regards to loading film is done by hand, whereas because the Pentax A3 has a power wind feature, if you like, it's slightly different, slightly more automatic. So I've got some dummy film here. I say dummy, it's real film, it's just unfortunately it's been exposed and I just use it for testing various things. So I'm going to use this on both cameras and show you how they're loaded up. So the Praktica, first of all, obviously your camera may open in a different way. You'll obviously need to look at, does it have a sliding switch on the sides or something like that. But a lot of SLRs, or sorry, a lot of 35mm cameras rather, open by pulling up your wind back lever and just popping the back open and obviously expose the inside. Most 35mm load from this side, but obviously look out, some do actually load from that side, although it's rarer. It should be obvious which way the film goes up. It'll only go one way. Just try and make a note of the ASA speed before you put it in, because not all cameras have a little window on the back to tell you afterwards, so hopefully remembering that way. So pop it into this slot here, and obviously we need to push back down the lever so that it engages with the film, and the film now won't fall out by accident. Draw the leader across. Obviously we don't use this part of the film. And this next part then is going to vary depending on the model of your camera. Take-up spool on this particular one has got sort of little metal retainers, and you'll see what they're for in a moment. Sometimes there's a slot in the take-up spool. Sometimes you just feed it nearby and it'll automatically pick it up, but it's going to vary. The best thing to do, if you can, is get hold of the manual for your camera. I'll leave a link in the description below for a brilliant site that actually supplies many manuals for many vintage cameras. They've been an absolute godsend to most photographers in the past. But yeah, have a look. It should be something on these lines. On the film at the beginning, we have obviously a sort of leader, as we call it, and it has a piece cut out of it, so that makes it easier to thread in. With this particular one, what I'm going to do is go over the top of the take-up spool, and you'll see the metal retainer actual clamp hold of the film. Let me turn it round slightly. The film obviously has sprocket holes, and you'll see obviously the sprocket teeth on the winding mechanism. So whilst the camera is still open, just wind on a little bit and making sure that this is engaged, and you may have to sort of fire the shutter. So you'll see the metal thing here is going to grab hold of the film and pull it in. I'm happy that's now engaged. I can close the back. My shutter count is on less than 1 because it's standard that we waste a couple of shots in order to actually get to number 1, and your 36 or your 24 exposure film takes that into consideration. So just fire the shutter, wind on until you get to number 1. So again, you'll know it's working, you'll know it's engaged, because this will turn as you wind on the thing. So just one more shot and we're there, we're at number 1, we're ready to start shooting. As I say, I'm happy to waste this film because it's already been exposed. So when we're finished with your film, unless it's an auto wind back, you obviously need to retrieve it. So you look for the release button. We have most cameras on the bottom, but obviously again, look at your particular model. I can now lift this crank and begin to wind the film back. Whoops. All right. I'm actually going to open the back so that you can see what I'm doing. So it's released the film, and I can now just wind that back. And in real circumstances, you could wind back until it goes inside the canister. That's perfectly acceptable. But obviously, I want to show you the same process on another camera. So let's just, whoops, put that one to one side and have a look at the Pentax A3. A couple of differences with the A3. First of all, it has a little window, so even after the film's been loaded, you'll be able to check on what speed it is, what type of film you've got in, so that you can set it correctly. Because this one's fully automatic, it's a slightly different procedure, but not much. Camera's turned off at the moment, so same thing with this one. I'm going to pull up the lever, oops, all fingers and thumbs, pop open the back. Again, put our film in. This is a DX camera and a DX film, which I've featured in a previous video, but doesn't really have any bearing on loading the film. So we're again going to lock that in place. Now this one is slightly different. This one has a red mark here, and basically the manufacturer states that as once you've pulled the leader of the film just over the take-up spool, as long as you're within that red bit, it should automatically pick it up. I'm going to have to trust that's true. So all we do is we close it up, turn the camera on, obviously, and you'll see it's on S, which is for start. And I now just press the shutter, and it should wind the film on automatically to number 1. Wind, all I do is press the shutter, and it will take a couple of shots until it gets to number 1, and now that's ready to shoot. And you saw the spool going around to show that it had actually engaged and we're good to go. And I can just prove it by opening it up again, and you'll see it automatically took itself onto the spool. There you go. I hope that helps. As I said to you before, there are different methods, slight different changes in method for different models, but hopefully that's given you enough information to at least get you started. But as I said, definitely worth you checking out the manual site that I've listed in the links below, purely because it's just got such a range of manuals for vintage film cameras. Just one bit of news, I've reduced all the prices of my own prints in my shop. Not sure if my work is something that interests you, but if it is, check out the website, because you might be able to get yourself a bargain. Other than that, see you next time. Thank you.